Yo, what's up? This the Edge. I got the head coach of Howard University football out here on homecoming weekend. And, we like to talk about certain things on Crazy Life, but I know this right here is kind of different because you're a coach that's been in different places.
Yep.
And then you got to come to a HBCU with limited resources. Then you got limited resources. How do you deal with that, and how can a player actually accept coming here versus going to a PWI when they know that the odds are against them?
I tell you what, I think you got to redefine what odds mean, right? You go into anything, football is still football at the end of the day. Still running, blocking, tackling. It's still the simple things that either way it goes, whether you got a big fancy building and you got, all of this sports science and you got all this stuff around you, the work is still the work.
But what about enticing the player? Like right now, the players, they so caught up in, the glitz and glamour.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So how do you go about it? How do you go and say, especially when it comes to recruiting?
Yeah, I think you have to sell, Howard, the brand, what it is. You have to help them see the bigger picture of the holistic part and pieces to being a student athlete. Where you're going to go, where you get developed both on and off the field. The culture environment that you walk in, the culture that is a standard that is set by Black excellence here at Howard University.
But I know that for some kids, you got to have certain GPAs, so a lot of times the athletes don't have the best GPA.
Yeah.
So you have to fight that. You have to fight limited resources. You have to fight hard to try to actually get the athletes that kind of fit the mold of a true football player.
Yeah, but with this brand, we can go coast to coast. And so we can go pluck in schools where guys are, still value their education. They understand the importance of, they're a really good football player. They come from a really good football program, but they have a really good blend and balance, to who they are and what they want to become. And so you try to tap into, to those guys that, that see the holistic big picture view of what it is that they not necessarily just football, but what it is they want to be life of the sport.
Yeah, but right now, a lot of guys, like for me personally, the whole goal was always to go to the NFL.
Right.
And, you always want to go to a program that's puts guys in the NFL and produces those. And you've seen every scope. You was at the University of Miami, you was at Alabama, you played at South Florida. And so when you're trying to balance all that with got to get good grades, limited resources, and NFL pedigree, it's like trying to sell that to a kid.
Yeah, I think we have to look at our staff, top to bottom. We've been in those environments and places where we've developed those type of guys. And so know what it takes off the field, off the field and on the field to develop those guys in the NFL caliber type talent. You look at what we've done the last two recruiting classes, I think we have a lot of that talent running around. Hence, therefore, you've seen all 32 NFL teams here to scout and watch practice, and they'll be here for our game this weekend. And some of them are doubling back and sending 2 and 3 scouts, So we got guys that are going to be playing in the Shrine Bowl, 2 guys that are probably one guy playing the Senior Bowl, one guy playing the Shrine Bowl. So obviously attracting that type of talent, but then having the coaches and putting the really key cogs, together to make sure you're developing those type of guys is important too. So we're doing a good job developing those guys once we got them here, and then we putting the right pieces with sports science, nutrition, and those things in place to help develop that player. But a lot of them too, they look at coaches, look at who's going to develop me and who's going to coach me, and we've been fortunate enough to put together a staff that comes from that pedigree and comes from that background, so we're able to attract some of those type of kids just based on that.
But then you also have another thing that's been thrown, like kind of puts HBCU at a disadvantage, the NILs. With the NILs becoming a big deal, it's becoming so attractive, and a lot of schools are practically buying their kids.
Yeah.
Now you throw that into all the other limited opportunities that you have. How do you deal with that when you got a kid that his friends are over here getting paid money, and then he all of a sudden he coming here? How do you actually balance that?
Actually, that's a tough one because at the end of the day, right, kids are so based on, what they have and aesthetics and what things look like and those type of things. So, yeah, obviously it's something that you're battling. And you're going to attract a certain type of kid, and I think that's what's important to us is to worry about the kids we do attract and who we do get and who we can tap into to bring the best out of them. So the challenge is always going to be putting it back on them. What is it that you truly want? What do you want to be? Do you want to build opportunities for you life after sport? Do you want to build your internship network? Do you want to build a network of people that are going to be able to support you in a host of ways after school, after sport, as opposed to while you're just in the game for 3 to 4 years and making a little money and putting that in your pocket and not building a network of what true value is going to be for you in the long run, not just in the immediate future, but in the post future when you're going to spend most of your life not even playing the game of football. It's going to be over with. So you're going to have to put those cleats up, hang those shoulder pads, and what does your network look like? What is the opportunities that can be presented to you differently here in this environment that will be presented to you differently in other environments? So you got to tap into the kids that kind of see the long game. They can kind of see the big picture, because that's the type of kid that it's going to take to be successful in this environment anyway. Guys that have that type of big picture, mindset and mentality.
I think that's a good approach right there, because you break it down and you start looking at, especially life after football, life after sport, it comes back to the foundation, and the foundation of Howard University. I think it's something that a certain type of player, they would actually benefit from being here. But just as a coach, I just know there's so many challenges. And
it is a challenge.
Coming from PWI, I know there's so many advantages that we actually had. And then when I come here and my son's actually here, you start looking at like, okay, that's a big difference. But the game is the game, but it takes a certain type of player.
Yeah, and I think that's what you have to really focus on. It's easy to focus on the things you don't have, right? Because then that also sets you up to be able to make all of the excuses that you want to make.
Right.
And life will throw that at you too, right? You can always look at things and find the negatives, and those are usually easy. A 8-year-old can walk up and see the differences.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's just, it takes a special kind of person, a special type of individual to be here, to see those things. And those will be the reasons why you win too as well. Those individuals that see it that way, that have that mindset and mentality. So don't focus on extenuating the negatives. Let's find the positives and extenuate those. And that's how you'll find success both on and off the field.
Nah, that's great. And also, we always like talk about what makes the great great. And you've been around so many great players and you've been around so many great programs, so the difference between a winner and a loser, it's really minor. It's like a small gap. From your perspective, being in those top programs, what makes the great team great?
Man, like you always say, I heard you say it too, Edge, the work is the work. At the end of the day, what you train is what you train. And when you train and you're built right, you don't rise to the occasion, right? You don't show up because the lights turn on, or you don't do that. You fall back on those blind spots. You fall back on how you've been built. You fall back on how you've been trained. You fall back on how the work has brought you to this point to be ready for any moment. No matter how big or how small it is, the moment is the moment. And you can stay true to it and stay connected to it if you've been about the work and the process of getting to where you really want to go. And so at the end of the day, that's what it is. The great teams know how to stay focused on the process. They understand that the work is the work. And that, don't get caught up in all the other hype and all the other stuff. The teams that kind of be up and down and all that kind of stuff, they let outside influences influence how they perform, how they prepare, and how they do those things. If you got a routine that works for you, stick to the routine. Be about the work. When we go to practice, you know what the day calls for. It's a first base down day. It's a third down day. Keep your focus on what you need to be about the work and the process, and you'll find yourself where you want to be.
How can a 19, 20-year-old be focused at Howard when it's like 20 girls to one?
I think that's.
I don't think there's an answer.
No, it's not
how do you get that? When I see these guys at the HBCUs and distraction, like how can a guy that comes to Howard University see some of the most beautiful females in the world? But he has practice. He had to go, and then also y'all had to practice in the cold. I came out here, I had to have on gloves a couple times. It's like, how can a guy sit up there and focus when he has all those distractions? As a young teenager he's away from home, he's finally on his own, and he got everything at his disposal. Like, how can they?
It's difficult, right? It's difficult because you're fighting human nature.
It's not like a PWI.
No, not at all. No way.
That's another distraction. That's a distraction. So I take my hat off to anybody that comes to HBCU and play at a high level, because there's so many distractions. But if you overcome those distractions,
there it is.
Tell you that the future's so bright.
There it is. They always say it here at Howard, if you can make it at Howard, you can make it anywhere. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. You would have made it. You would have made it in the world and have the success you've had. But man, I think that's a big part to it. And I think that's what you have to sell. So you also have to not let those things, don't sell them as distractions. Sell them as things that are a part of your journey, a part of you growing up, a part of you finding a way to navigate what's going on and what happens, around you, and understanding that those things are going to always happen around successful people.
Right.
Always happen around successful people. So if you can learn to manage those things, keep the process, don't see it as a distraction, see it as a part of where you're going and a part of your journey. And don't put and compartmentalize those things into one thing. This all can be a part of your world, your journey, your growth, if you learn how to, kind of navigate it and handle it as you go. Will you make mistakes? Yes. Will there be slips up? Absolutely, they will be. But don't lose from them, learn from them, and just keep growing and understanding that the higher you get and the more successful you become, the more those things are going to always surround you and be around you. And the more you better handle them and be able to manage them, the better off you're going to be. So what better grounds to do that than right here at Howard University?
Yeah. Howard University, yeah. Then we got Coach Scott, former South Florida native. He played at the University of South Florida. He didn't get a chance to go, but he did get a chance to go be a Hurricane.
Okay, absolutely.
From University of Miami Hurricane ties, but creating the life you want to live. We're here to motivate, inspire, uplift people. And here's another episode that's giving a little insight on the things that make the great, that better people's lives and just push this whole world forward. Thanks for having me, Coach.
Absolutely. I appreciate being here.